The flashlight beam cut through my living room window like a blade. "Sir, we're responding to a report of a break-in." I didn't move right away. Just sat there on the edge of the staircase, heart calm but heavy, watching the red and blue. Lights paint over the mahogany trim my great-great-grandfather carved with his own hands. I'd barely finished unpacking. Another knock. Firmer this time. "Sir, step outside with your hands where we can see them." I opened the front door slowly, barefoot in gym shorts, the porch light flickering above me. 2 officers, guns holstered. One had his hand near the grip, though. The other looked younger, eyes darting to the house, then back to me, then to the house again. "You live here?" "Yeah," I said evenly. "Just moved in." "We had a call from one of the neighbors, said there was a suspicious male trying to force entry." I looked past them. Sure enough, there was Nancy across the street, peeking out through her blinds like she always did, probably holding her damn Pomeranian like a baby, dialing 911 with one hand and clutching pearls with the other. "I used my key," I said, raising it in the porch light, "and the title's in my name. Elijah Cobb. You want to see it?" The younger one shifted as if the awkwardness finally settled in. The older one kept that professional stiffness. "Mind showing some ID?" I turned around slowly, letting them see I wasn't scared, just tired, and went back in. They didn't follow. I came back with my wallet, handed them my license and a laminated copy of the deed. The seal shimmered gold under the cruiser lights. "You're a Cobb?" the younger one asked. I nodded. "Why?" He glanced at the porch. The hand-carved columns, the original iron scrollwork on the stairs. "Thought this house was older money, like plantation era." I smiled, not kindly. "My great-great-grandfather built it. For his family, with his own tools, freedman's hands. Took him 15 years. The older cop cleared his throat. "Apologies for the inconvenience. Just doing our job." "Tell that to your dispatcher," I said. "And tell Nancy I said hello." They left, and I stood there barefoot on pine wood that was older than both of them put together, feeling history press against my chest like a hand. Not the first time this happened. Won't be the last. But this one stung. Because this house was mine, long before I had the keys, long before Nancy had her curtains. My grandfather used to say, "Blood built this home. Wood remembers, even if people don't." I plan to remind them all, but not with shouting, not with fists, with facts, with paper, with proof, and eventually with cameras, because I wasn't just moving in, I was reclaiming what was stolen. The next morning, there was a muffin basket on my porch, store-bought, blueberry, wrapped in a tight little bow like guilt could be gift-wrapped. No. Note, no apology, just a signal. "We see you, we don't know what to do with you, but here, take this." I picked it up, walked it right back across the street and left it on Nancy's porch rail. Didn't knock, didn't wait, just set it there, like a mirror. I had work to do. Most people know me as an architect. Some know I'm a preservationist. A few know I specialize in restoring homes with legacy, but almost nobody knows the truth behind this one. Not yet. This house wasn't just a project. It was a return. Great-great-grandfather Josiah Cobb had designed it with pencil sketches and salvaged lumber. He was a carpenter, a black artisan, back when that title could get you run out of town, or worse. He built this house after emancipation, on land given to him through a federal grant, and later quietly stolen. I'd spent the last 2 years tracing the lineage, digging up every scrap of documentation, land deeds, newspaper clippings, court records, handwritten letters from Josiah to his brother in Georgia. Stories passed down through my grandfather, who made me promise, "One day if it ever comes up for sale, you bring it home." When it finally hit the market, the listing called it a charming southern classic with colonial bones. Not a word about Josiah, not a word about how it left our family's name, sold under duress during Jim Crow. I bought it in cash. But the neighborhood didn't see a legacy. They saw a black man pulling up in a truck with New York plates and locks tied back in a silk wrap. They saw outsider. They saw risk. By Friday, 3 more neighbors had welcomed me with passive stares and fake waves. The HOA packet slid under my door that night, with a typed warning already highlighted. Section 3B. All renovations must be reviewed and approved by the HOA board in writing before external modifications can commence, which would be funny. If I wasn't already on the city's Historic Preservation Commission. I chuckled, tossed the packet on the kitchen table, and opened my laptop. It was time. I logged into my research folder, opened the deeds archive, pulled the scanned affidavit, signed in 1902, when Josiah's son was forced to sell the house for 1/4 of its value after accidental code violations kept appearing during inspections. That sale? Same family that still ran the HOA. Then I opened the folder titled Restoration as Resistance. Every photo I took of the original beams, the crawlspace carvings Josiah etched with initials and dates, even the one above the fireplace. JC 1872, nearly faded now. I already had the blueprint for renovation approvals, but I was drafting something else now, an exhibit. A presentation, a reckoning. It wouldn't be loud, wouldn't be angry, it would be sharp, beautiful. I'd file the permits. I'd follow every rule, and I'd restore the house to exactly what it was built to be. A monument to presence. They'd try to box me in with bylaws, but I had blueprints older than their covenants, and this time we weren't leaving. The first letter arrived in a tan envelope with my name typed in bold. Mr. Cobb, your recent exterior additions appear to be in violation of Section 4A of the Community Covenant. Please cease any further alterations until the HOA reviews your project in its monthly meeting. They were talking about the porch. I hadn't altered it. I'd restored it, using reclaimed pine and hand-forged nails based on Josiah's original sketches, which I'd found tucked in the back of my great-grandfather's Bible. But they didn't see that. They saw the scaffolding and assumed rebellion. Disorder. Defiance. I walked out front, took a breath, and stared at the porch rail again. 4 generations of my blood had walked these stairs. Josiah, Nathaniel, Hiram, my father. Now me. But they wanted me to ask permission, to fix what they'd broken. I replied the next morning with a letter of my own. Dear HOA Board, the porch in question is being returned to its documented 1872 design under city-approved historic preservation guidelines. I have attached said approvals, which override HOA design standards under State Code 6-14. Kindly ensure your future concerns are grounded in legal precedent. I signed it. Elijah Cobb, AIA, Lead AP, City Preservation Commission, and tucked a copy of the original porch sketch, with Josiah's initials, into the envelope too. Then I mailed one to each board member. That same day, a white pickup truck slowed in front of my house, windows tinted, no plates on the front. Just a long look, long enough to make a point. The kind of look you grow up learning to measure. The kind that says you're making noise where you're supposed to be quiet. Didn't flinch. Instead, I walked out with my phone and started taking photos of the truck, the driver, the timestamp. Saved it to a folder labeled Pattern, because this wasn't just about me, it never was. That night I Zoomed with my cousin Darnell, who ran a community justice non-profit out in Atlanta. They messing with you already? He asked, brow raised. They started before I moved in. He sipped his tea. You ready to go public? Not yet, I said, but I'm building the foundation. I showed him my files, the maps, the ownership transfers, the coded violations from the early 1900s. Even pulled up a digitized news clipping from 1911, Cobb family relinquishes residence after disputes with town officials. Property transferred to James Willoughby. James Willoughby, grandfather of the current HOA president. Darnell leaned back in his chair. So they've been robbing y'all. 3 generations, I said. And I got the paper to prove it. He nodded slowly. You thinking lawsuit? I stared out the window, where the streetlight caught the edge of my porch, now sanded, clean, restored like it used to be. I'm thinking documentary. Darnell broke into a grin. Oh, we making a movie now. I smiled, but it didn't reach my eyes. We're making memory, on film, in ink, on walls, everywhere they can't erase it, because this house wasn't just my home. It was a scar, a receipt, a record, and I was done asking for permission to remember. I knew I hit a nerve when they started sending the fines. The envelope this time wasn't tan. It was white, formal, with a little gold-embossed HOA emblem at the top, like they wanted it to feel expensive, official. Above me, inside, $250 penalty for unauthorized scaffolding visible from the street, $150 for failure to remove debris within 72 hours, $100 for exceeding acceptable color variance on porch trim. The color variance, I'd matched the paint to the original formula Josiah used, documented in one of his supply lists from 1874. A soft burnt clay red. Not whatever bland beige they seem to worship around here. I took a photo of the fines, scanned them, added them to the folder. Then I wrote back, all restoration efforts comply with historic structure exemption under Municipal Code 6-14. HOA fines are unenforceable on exempted structures. Attached, city approvals and material registry records. Attached a photo of the porch trim with a color swatch, and a copy of a letter signed by the city's Preservation Office director, who happened to be an old grad school classmate of mine. Marcus. We used to pull all-nighters sketching cornices and debating urban zoning codes. Now he had my back. For ma foi, silence after that letter was louder than the fines. For 2 days, nothing, no knocks, no calls, no passive-aggressive stares over hedge trimmers, until Saturday morning. That's when I heard it. Excuse me. I was up on a ladder sealing the upper windows with linseed oil. I looked down and saw her, Nancy, hands on hips, visor tilted like a white picket crown. Her dog was in one arm, shaking like it felt the tension radiating through her skin. Yes? I called down, calm. You can't just do whatever you want. This is a community. We have standards. I climbed down slowly, wiping my hands on a rag, met her at the base of the steps. I'm not doing whatever I want, I said. I'm doing what's documented, what's legal and what's mine. You don't have to be so defensive, she said, adjusting her grip on the dog. People are just concerned. People, I repeated. Or just you. Her mouth twitched. She looked around, like hoping someone else would join. Her in solidarity, but no one did. Nancy, I said quietly, you called the police on me, before I even finished moving in, and now you're trying to fine me for fixing what your board let rot. I didn't, she stammered. It's okay, I said, cutting her off gently, because I don't need your approval. I stepped back onto the porch. But since you're here, you might as well see this. I pulled open the storm door and pointed inside, to the freshly hung portrait above the fireplace, a black and white photograph of Josiah Cobb, standing tall in front of the house he built with bare hands and dignity no deed could take away. That's the man who built this house, I said. He's been gone a long time, but every nail I put in this place is a way of bringing him home. Nancy said nothing. She looked at the photo, then back at me. Her face was unreadable, a mix of confusion, discomfort, and maybe, just maybe, shame. She turned and walked away, Didn't even say goodbye, but that was fine because later that afternoon Marcus called. "Hey," he said, "you remember that grant we talked about? For community memory and historics injustice?" I sat up straighter. "Yeah? You got it. Full funding. And the state wants to feature your restoration in their Heritage Reclaimed campaign this fall." I smiled, the kind of smile that starts behind the eyes. "Let's make sure the neighborhood gets front row seats." By the time the Heritage Reclaimed camera crew arrived, the porch was done. Sealed, stained, restored to glory. They brought drones, lighting kits, a black producer named Amina, who walked through the front door like she already knew the weight it carried. "This house got a spirit," she whispered, running her fingers across the banister. "Feels like it's been waiting for you." I didn't say anything right away, just nodded, because she was right. They set up in the parlor where Josiah's original tools hung now, not behind glass but displayed with care. The mallet he used to shape joists, the square ruler, initials carved at the corner. His old leather apron weathered but intact, history you could touch. Outside, a few neighbors slowed down as they drove past. By noon, 3 of them had circled the block twice. By 2 o'clock, Nancy was back at her window, blinds parted just enough to spot the sound crew and the boom mic by the fireplace. We filmed the first interview upstairs, where the sunlight filtered through stained glass panels Josiah's daughter had installed. When she was 16, Amina asked questions softly but directly. "When did you first realize the home had been taken from your family?" I answered without blinking. "When I saw the original deed. When I saw the sale under duress. When I saw the signature from 1911 written in a different hand than my great-grandfather's, like someone else finished the deal for him." A pause. "And what does reclaiming this home mean to you now?" I looked at the wall beside me, where I'd hung a framed letter, Josiah's handwriting. Slanted and careful. "This house gon' stand longer than I do, and if it ever fall, let it be by family hands only." I swallowed. It means he was right. It's still standing. And this time we're not letting go. After the interview, we shot B-roll, me in the workshop, planing salvaged wood, walking through the backyard garden where I'd planted heirloom collards and okra from seed packets my grandfather saved in a shoebox. The crew followed me through each restored room, each corner where I'd honored what was built before me. They called it a feature, but to me it felt like testimony. Later that week, flyers for the upcoming documentary screening appeared at every doorstep in the neighborhood, part of the state grant program. Title in bold, "Restoring What Was Taken, the Cobb House Project. Screening." At the local museum, open to the public, and on the flyer, a full-color photo of the house porch glowing in the afternoon sun. Josiah's portrait framed in the window behind me. I taped one to the community bulletin board by the mailboxes. By morning, someone had torn it down. By afternoon, I'd posted 3 more, and by the end of the week, the city mailed official. Notice, the Cobb House had been approved as a protected historical landmark, permanent, irreversible, immune to HOA interference, just like Josiah intended. By Monday morning, the neighborhood group chat was on fire. Someone leaked a screenshot to me, an anonymous email titled "The Cobb Situation," forwarded to the HOA board. This level of media attention is not what our community stands for. Some residents feel increasingly uncomfortable. Should we consider adding a clause about outside filming and disruptive media presence? Disruptive. That's what they called a man honoring his ancestors with a camera crew and a story. Disruptive. The same week, I'd led a walking tour for a group of high school students, most of them black, explaining how zoning laws were weaponized in the early 1900s to force out families like mine. How red lines became concrete fences. How land loss became generational poverty. The kids asked real questions, the kind adults avoid. One boy, Jamal, stared up at the porch and asked, "How come we never learned about this in class?" Told him, "Because when the truth lives in wooden walls, they think they can paint over it." But this house wasn't paint. It was carved, etched, signed, and now it was protected. I'd framed the landmark designation and hung it beside Josiah's portrait. Amina said they wanted to use the photo of me unveiling it as the closing shot for the documentary. Still, I kept my next move quiet. Didn't tell them about the panel I'd been invited to. Didn't mention that the Cobb house would be featured in the next Architectural Legacy Quarterly. Didn't say a word when the Smithsonian's Black Heritage Archives reached out, asking if I'd consider donating Josiah's tools for preservation, or better yet, hosting a permanent exhibit right here in the home he built. But the day I got that offer, I did one thing. I invited Nancy to tea, not out of pettiness, out of poetry. I knocked on her door around 2 p.m., a soft tray of ginger biscuits and lemon balm tea in hand. She opened the door slowly, eyes cautious. "I thought you might like to talk," I said. "No cameras today." She stared. The silence stretched, but eventually she stepped aside. Inside, her place smelled like roses and starch. Perfect, orderly, a little suffocating. We sat in her sunroom, surrounded by porcelain dogs and cross-stitched quotes like, "Bless this home" and "Love is spoken here." She didn't touch the tea. "I suppose you think you're clever," she said finally. "With all of this attention," I sipped mine, calm. "I don't think I'm clever, Nancy. I think I'm home." She scoffed. I set my cup down. "You know, Josiah built that house with no blueprint but his memory. He wasn't allowed to get certified. Couldn't go to architecture school. But the bones he laid down, still standing 150 years later." She didn't respond, just shifted, uncomfortable. "I'm not here to fight," I said. "But I am here to stay, and I'm not shrinking just because it makes some folks uncomfortable." Another silence. Then something almost human in her voice. "My father, he used to tell us the house was haunted." I raised an eyebrow. She looked down. "Said it had ghosts. Never explained. Just said it didn't belong to us." I leaned forward. He was right. It didn't. Nancy didn't cry, but she blinked. "Fast, I didn't expect this," she whispered. "I didn't expect to be met with suspicion in the house my blood built," I replied. "But here we are." She nodded slowly. Didn't apologize. But something shifted. Something small. When I left the biscuits on the table. Didn't care if she ate them. What mattered was the tea had been poured, and the ghosts had been acknowledged. Fall came in slow. The leaves turned like they were remembering. Yellows like old paper. Reds like iron rust. The kind of colors that made the porch glow just before sunset. I spent most evenings out there now. Not working, not documenting, just sitting, watching, listening, letting the silence soften. The neighborhood, once stiff with side eyes, canned cold greetings had shifted too. Not completely, not all at once, but enough to feel it. People walked a little slower past my gate now. A few nodded. One or two even waved. A father with twin boys stopped by last week to ask about the workshop behind the house. "I heard you teach sometimes," he said. "Would you ever show the boys how to carve like that?" He pointed to the columns Josiah designed, spiraled cedar, hand-chiseled, every line an act of defiance against the plane. I told him yes. We scheduled a Saturday morning. They showed up right on time, wide-eyed, eager, full of questions. I gave them gloves too big for their hands and let them sand old scraps while I talked about wood grain and resistance. "I want to make something that lasts," one of them said. "You already are," I told him. That same week the museum sent over a proof of the exhibit flyer. Legacy in the grain, the Cobb house, and the hands that built it. Opening next month. I stared at it for a long time. The photo they'd used showed me on the porch, arms folded, standing in front of Josiah's initials carved into the doorframe, a shadow of him, and yet not a copy, a continuation. That night, I got a knock on the door. Not a neighbor, not the mailman. It was Mr. Willoughby, Eugene Willoughby, HOA president, tall gray suit. The kind of man who always looked like he was about to shake hands with a governor or fire somebody's cousin. "Mr. Cobb," he said stiffly. I opened the screen and stepped out, keeping my voice level. "Evening? I'd like to talk, if you have a moment." He didn't ask to come in. We stood on the porch, 2 men and 150 years of wait between us. "I've been watching all this," he said, gesturing vaguely. "The press, the attention, the historic designation." I waited. I won't pretend I like everything about how this unfolded, but I can't deny the facts you've brought forward, and it appears the city is fully on your side. Nodded. The truth usually speaks louder than bylaws. He flinched a little at that. Swallowed it. "I came to say—" He hesitated, eyes down, then up again. "We'd like to invite you to the next HOA meeting, as a guest speaker." Raised an eyebrow. "About heritage," he added quickly. "About the home's history. We think it might help the community understand more." I looked at him, really looked. Not as the man who signed off on those fines, not as the grandson of the man who signed Josiah's name away, but as a man with a chance to do one thing right. "I'll come," I said, "but I won't make it." "Pretty. I wouldn't expect you to." He left after that, didn't offer a handshake, didn't need to, because something had changed, not enough to call it peace, but enough to call it a crack in the wall. That night I wrote the speech, not for them, for the ones who never got to walk back through the door, for Josiah, for my grandfather, for every name scrubbed from a ledger and buried under polite landscaping, and when I read it, I read slow, letting every word fall like nails into pine. The night of the HOA meeting, the room smelled like lemon polish and old tension. They held it at the community center, neutral ground, beige walls, overhead fluorescence, about 30 folding chairs in a too-silent circle, most of them full. Nancy was there, hair tighter than usual, eyes softer. Eugene Willoughby stood near the coffee table, nodding at no one in particular. I didn't bring notes, just a photo of Josiah, framed, polished, and resting under my arm like a promise. They introduced me cold. No fanfare. Just, "Mr. Cobb has agreed to share a bit of history with us tonight." I stepped to the front, set Josiah's photo on the table, and began. "My name is Elijah Cobb, and I didn't come here to make you feel better." A few heads shifted. "I came here because this house," I said, "the one some of you called the police on me for entering, it didn't start with you, and it won't end with you." I let that land. This house was built by my great-great-grandfather, Josiah Cobb, who was born into slavery and died with dignity. He carved its beams with hands that had once been shackled, and when this town took it from him, they didn't take the memory. A stillness settled over the room like a blanket. For years my family told stories about this place, about Josiah's porch, the garden, the woodshop in the back, stories whispered across generations, even after our name was scrubbed from the deed. I looked around, and now, it's back in our hands. I held up the framed photo. This man built a home when he had no rights, and I rebuilt it with the ones he earned for me. No applause, just silence, the good kind, the kind that says we're listening even if we don't know what to say. Afterward, 2 people clapped. One woman wept quietly, and Eugene nodded at me with something near respect, maybe regret, maybe both. A week later, the state documentary aired online. Then on public TV, Amina sent me a clip of the final scene, the drone shot panning over. The house at dusk, Josiah's initials lit by porch lanterns, my voice layered over it. Some houses are just places, But some are proof. This one is both. The response was, more than I expected. Letters from across the country. Descendants of other builders, other Cobbs, who thought their history was lost. Students asking for tours. City councils asking for advice. The Smithsonian confirmed the exhibit. They wanted to call it Legacy Carved, One House, 5 Generations. And I said no. I said, call it Still Standing. Because we were. Because Josiah's bones might be in the earth, but his work still held my roof, and now the whole world knew. One morning I found a new note on my porch, handwritten, folded neat. I was wrong. The house belongs to you. And somehow it belongs to all of us now too. Nancy. I folded it and tucked it inside Josiah's Bible. Didn't frame it. Didn't need to. Some things don't need glass. Some things just need time.